Well, good morning, Little Masters, and welcome to today's Tolkien Times. I'm Alan, the man of the West, also from the Prancing Pony podcast, and today's Tolkien Times is my way of bringing you a little Middle-earth every single day. Now, if the few minutes that you get here with me is not quite enough, be sure to listen to the Prancing Pony podcast. With 7 years worth of long episodes, somewhere around 300 by now, as we walk our way through the Legendarium, there's bound to be enough. But let's get started today with Fandom Friday. Now, every Friday we plan on sitting down with somebody from the wider world of the Tolkien fandom, from artists to academics, from cosplayers to collectors, from elvish experts to masters of maps. Fandom Friday is a chance to meet your fellow Tolkien fans and maybe even learn what niches of the community you might be interested in exploring. So today we're welcoming one of the three gentlemen behind what has become one of my most indispensable resources in the Tolkien community, the Tolkien Collector's Guide. Now, their website, TolkienGuide.com, was the winner of the 2019 Tolkien Society Award for Best Website and is a go-to site for information, not just on collecting Tolkien as you might expect, but for Tolkien news, upcoming releases and events, and a whole lot more. So folks, please join me in welcoming Jeremy Edmonds to today's Tolkien Times.
Hey, thanks for having me, Alan. It's great to be here.
It's my pleasure, Jeremy. It's good to see you again. And folks, when I say again, of course, Jeremy has been a guest on the Prancing Pony podcast before, so it's always good to welcome back a familiar face. Well, the Tolkien Collector's Guide is primarily about collecting Tolkien, but because of that, I want to hear about your journey into collecting, right? What got you interested in collecting Tolkien, and how did you begin the process of starting a collection or building a collection?
It's been decades for me. My parents were Tolkien fans in the 60s when they were in college. They had a good sized library of their own of books in the office. And so myself growing up when I was, single digit age, 8, 10, something like that, my reading interest grew into more than what school was giving me. I was pulling books out of the library. I started to read books from my parents' bookshelf. Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit caught my eye fairly early on. And I really enjoyed them. And they were a rereading favorite of mine, probably a couple of times a year, especially the Lord of the Rings. I know some focus on The Hobbit, but I'm a Lord of the Rings fan, deepest fan myself. That's the one that I always go back to. And I wasn't treating them well as a youngster, as far as carrying
this back
them
when you were
around.
still folding pages to mark where you were in the book?
I don't think I folded pages, but I feel really bad for the dust jackets. They kept the books in good shape, but they took a beating.
They did their job.
And my parents introduced me to the library and let's go check out some books. And, and it was fantastic to see this wider world of things to be reading. But it's hard to want to read something and not have a copy handy or want to get back to it. My first big job, earning money while I'm in high school was unimportant where it was, but between biking from there to home was, I want to say it was a Walden Books. Okay. Small, American bookstore chain.
Yeah.
And
many of those have long gone away, haven't they? I mean, Barnes & Noble is about the only one left. Walden Books is gone. I'm trying to remember all the others that were around in the 90s.
Borders.
Or even the 80s. Borders.
Crown Books. Anyway, regardless, they would cash my paychecks for me. So I would never end up with money getting home. I would come home with 3 or 4 paperbacks. And
I love it.
Yeah, exactly. And that was a fun weekly little endeavor.
Yeah.
And just, I can't explain why having to have the book rather than checking it out of the library was important to me. But again, I like reading. I like jumping back in. Oh, yeah. And so it kind of started there. And science fiction and fantasy in general, and a voracious reader, but always coming back to the Lord of the Rings. And then I'm going to say college time frame, really getting into different cover art and the different editions that were available out there. And at that time, History of the Middle Earth was coming out. and what is this deeper world, having been through Unfinished Tales, Silmarillion, and everything else. But it's been nonstop for book publishing. I mean, Tolkien was popular and constantly being reprinted from the 1937 release of The Hobbit onward. I mean,
it's true.
It shocked him. It continually shocked his publisher of like, this isn't going to sell. And
they still didn't think Lord of the Rings would sell. Remember? I mean, exactly. Sir Stanley Unwin was like, we're going to lose money on this, man.
I know. It's a vanity project. We like him, you know.
Yeah, he's a nice guy. We'll placate his ego by letting him publish this book. But we won't publish the Silmarillion.
Oh, God. No, that'll never sell. What are we thinking? Oh, exactly.
Yeah,
so he's his books are fascinating to me, but not just the content, but the structure and the publishing history and the variety, the international editions, the illustrated editions. It is, I want to say, literally endless. Obviously not.
It's just about, though. I mean, it sure seems like it is.
I know some collectors who have, tens of thousands of volumes in their libraries, and those are pruned. They've given up on certain areas of collecting because they don't have the room. And so it is.
Do their names rhyme with Lamond and Chol?
I think that's one. Exactly. Yes. And, one of them has a large house in Switzerland that he invites. Oh,
yes, of course. Yeah.
And yeah, exactly. It's so we've drifted a bit from my answer, but it is a common illness that affects a lot of us. I love it. I love smelling and holding and feeling and going back and the analytical side of my brain gets involved in the minutia of differences and changes and typos and re-releases and finding.
I always find those things interesting too. On the main podcast, we will sometimes reference what it was like in the first edition, even though there's almost no really significant structural differences in the Lord of the Rings between the first and second. It's always interesting to catch those tiny differences.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's fascinating stuff.
It is.
Is there a white whale that you hope to track down someday? A piece of, I don't know, either a book or maybe some piece of ephemera that you're like, I really want to get my hands on that. I haven't been able to find one yet.
There's a couple of books that are exceedingly difficult to find that I think almost all collectors have, a wish for. For me personally, I would love to get like some of the unpublished or pre-publication proofs of the Lord of the Rings. There have been a few copies that have hit the marketplace over the years. So there is a razor slim chance that another one would show up someday when I won the lottery.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's the problem. The white whales aren't just like, well, if you're in the right place at the right time, you can capture the white whale. No, you have to have an incredibly deep wallet to capture those white whales.
Exactly.
Songs for the Philologist isn't just going to show up on the market, but if it does, you better be ready to mortgage a house.
That's right. There's that. There's Sir Orfeo, the lecture pamphlet. There's, like I said, proofs of some of the early editions. There's my collecting tends not to focus on the high price for the most part. I mean, I have children. They are going to go through college. I have other things I want to do other than have a house that I'm nervous about leaving during
Seriously.
the day,
Yeah, I agree.
So a lot of my collecting focuses on ephemera and smaller things that are easy to they're easy to afford in the sense that they're not under huge demand, but they're so unique and small. And finding, I don't have it here in front of me, a pamphlet from a 1972 exhibition of Lord of the Rings. So Marquette for 3 or 4 years, they put the manuscripts, 20 to 30 sheets from their collection on a tour. It went to like a half dozen colleges, libraries around the United States, and did this little traveling thing. And they don't do that anymore.
No, they don't. Come to us if you want to see these things.
So chatting with Bill Fliss, who's the current archivist, and he's a friend, and he has some documentation on what these exhibitions were, so we know where they were. And I've contacted some libraries at these universities, say, do you have any old student newspapers, any references to these, just so we can kind of document them? And so on eBay, month ago, just a little advertising pamphlet for the Chicago exhibition in 71 or 72,
Wow.
I want to say. And it's just a little 2 or 3 page brochure on, hey, you should come. This is going to be great.
Yeah.
And, it was a few dollars, but it's like,
Sure.
nobody had this before. I'm sure somebody has it, but it's not documented.
But it's a unique piece. It's not like you just go to, Blackwell's and buy it off the shelf. It's
exactly.
not that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that because it shows that collecting can be done without having to mortgage your house. I mean, it's, I'm never going to have a first edition Hobbit. It's just plain and simple, never going to happen. So the sooner you accept that there are practical limitations, the more you can focus on areas of collecting that do fit your budget and your interests. So I like that.
Yeah, exactly. If you do want a first edition, there's a Hobbit at
of course
Blackwell's.
I want one.
Andrew, one of my friends from the Guide, is going to go see it on Friday. It's at there's a book show in London first, or I want to say, and Blackwell's is bringing one of their jacketed Hobbits, and so Andrew's going to be looking at it. And I know other collectors have gone to their rare bookshop in Oxford and seen this copy, but I know. I haven't even handled one myself.
I'd be terrified too, frankly. I don't think I can even afford the insurance policy that would allow me to touch it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more about Tolkien Collector's Guide, right? When did it begin? How did you start out? And then maybe what resources do you have available for the fandom?
I launched it almost 20 years ago now. So this website was, I want to say 2005, maybe 2006 when we opened the doors.
Wow.
Primarily, it is a discussion forum. So it's, old style web forum logic where you make posts, you connect with others, and you have a conversation. There's a wiki. So we have a guide, as we call it, that is collecting information that's badly in need of a refresh, which is underway. But it's really meant to be a community of gathering people who are interested in Tolkien, largely collecting. But as you've mentioned, we have a calendar of events that's fully populated out as far as we can. So a year and a half out. It probably has, at any given time, half a dozen book releases, international translations that are being tracked, moots and events. There's probably 100, 150 things in the calendar that are all linked out to, the original sources so that you can register, participate, etc.
Right.
We're working on the guide to make some serious updates. We'll be having a cool new feature, I think, in a few months that'll come out for letters, especially the unpublished letters.
Oh, yeah.
So it's working within the realm of what is shareable online, because everything's still copyrighted by the estate. But
even the unpublished letters, you can't just throw those out there, right?
Yep. Yeah. But it should hopefully be an immensely useful research tool for people who are looking for what did Tolkien write on these subjects, and not just in Carpenter's volume. We have a YouTube channel. We're shooting videos fairly regularly. Coming up just a few days. So before this episode releases, or just recently, for those watching this video now, we had Peter on, who edited the Book of Malden. So we have interviews, reviews of forthcoming books and recently published books. And we're doing now our Hoarded Scrolls series, which is short videos, which are more essays on particular topics. We're doing like the first edition Silmarillion from the UK. There's, if you say first edition, there's probably 20 different variants of that, different publishers, different hardcovers, formats, states. And so it's all just laid out with pictures and everything in just a couple of minutes to kind of give you a primer on a particular topic in a few minutes. So it's people are welcome to join at any time. We're probably 95% lurkers, just people out and reading and watching. There's no need to participate, but just hang out and learn. And we're always looking for... I'm
still at that state myself, actually. So
we love connecting with new fans. And as you mentioned, and as we kind of touched on, there's there's no right or wrong way to collect or be in the Tolkien community. So it's meant to be fun and enjoyable and a way to meet and share your passion with others.
That's excellent. That's just excellent right there. Well, for those who still haven't come across the Tolkien Collector's Guide, obviously we've mentioned the website earlier, tolkienguide.com. Where else can they find your content and follow you? You said YouTube. What's the YouTube handle? And then are you on any of the social media channels that they should follow?
So Tolkien Guide should find us just about everywhere on social media, including Blue Sky now. I know it's hard to get in, but that's still in beta.
That's good stuff.
And it is the full channel name is Tolkien Collector's Guide on YouTube. I'm pretty sure Tolkien Guide will also get you there, but Tolkien Collector's Guide is the official name of the channel. Instagram, Twitter, which I'm trying to avoid now. Facebook, there's a Tolkien Collector's Guide page there as well. And then, of course, the website. That's we try and funnel people there because it's easier to not get lost in the social media noise.
Exactly. You don't end up scrolling away and forgetting what you were trying to find out from the Tolkien Collector's Guide.
Yeah, and posts just disappear. Where's that thing I saw a week ago on Facebook? Oh, you can't find it.
The algorithm's like, well, you've already seen that. You don't need to see it again.
That's right.
Ever.
Yeah.
Well, folks, that is it for today's Fandom Friday. But come back next week as we visit with somebody else who does something else in the Tolkien fandom. And if you're interested in joining me or have an idea of somebody who should join me here on today's Tolkien Times for a future Fandom Friday, let me know by emailing barliman@theprancingponypodcast.com. Folks, plan on joining me again tomorrow on today's Tolkien Times as we wrap up our second week with Silmarillion Saturday. And please like and subscribe on YouTube. And if you're listening on a podcast app, be sure to follow or subscribe to make sure that every episode gets downloaded to your device. Follow @Tolkien Times on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, as well as YouTube. And in the words of Faramir, go with the goodwill of all good men.